Visionaries Global Media, your number one source for podcasting entertainment.
This is Dustin Tarr, and you're listening to the MGB Podcast.
Today we have a very special guest for the last episode of Season 3, Dustin Tarr. How you doing, Dustin?
What's up, Mason? What's going on, guys?
Hey, we're doing good. Thank you for coming on today.
No problem.
So when I was looking to do the introduction, I was looking online to find your nickname, but I couldn't find one. Did I just not look deep enough, or do you not have one?
I actually, a long time, I've been doing this probably a lot, well, I know a lot longer than you've been alive, but I long ago I dropped any nicknames just because being a lower level guy and an enhancement talent, as they say, I just I didn't adopt any monikers because I figured if I made it to a certain level, I wanted to be completely adaptable to whatever they stuck on me. So whatever anybody decided I was going to do or be or have the gimmick of, I wanted to be completely adaptable. So it was just Dustin Tarr for the longest time. When I first started, I would say 5 years or so after I got into the game, I decided I wanted to be a Hart. So I was going to be Ethan Hart. And I think I went by Hot Shot Ethan Hart for like a brief moment, and then actually met a Hart, and and he was like, yeah, you might not want to do that, bro. So yeah, I dropped that after a very brief stint as Hot Shot Ethan Hart, and went back to Dustin Tarr, and they're like, hey, if you can't market yourself as yourself, you probably shouldn't be doing this. And so I just decided if I was going to be anybody, I was going to be the first Dustin Tarr.
And that's why I love when Mason comes up with questions. I would never have thought of that in a million years, that most wrestlers actually have a nickname. I love
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Most
like
wrestlers have a moniker, and they get set in that mindset, and it's like, I am this character. And so if someone puts another character on them, they're stuck. Mm-hmm. They don't know where to go with it.
Absolutely. Now, we've actually only seen one of your matches. We
Okay.
got to see you in, I'm trying to remember the exact date, or approximately, I think it was June 2019. I know it was N.E.W. Wrestling.
Yes.
And we got to see you tag with the one O'Neill. And I know we're going to be talking about that later, but I just wanted to set the context for people of when we got to see you and where we know you from. Okay. All right, Mason, Go ahead.
For anyone that doesn't know you, how do you describe your character and style of wrestling?
I am, as I said, adaptable. If nothing else, I consider myself, after doing this since 1995. So how many years is that, Mason? Do the math for me real quick. If I started doing it in 1995, that would be 26 years, right?
Oh, you bailed him out way too quick. As
26
a
years.
Myself, I was very curious to see how much progress he was actually making there.
And
he looked very. You
Sorry
can't tell on
about
an
that,
audio
Dad.
podcast, but he was looking a little nervous then because I pulled a similar stunt on him last week as well.
I apologize, Dad. So yes. So 26 years, after all that time, I just want to be known as someone who can work with anyone, no matter their size, their speed, their ability, their years in the business. I want to be that ultimate utility man. I want to be the guy who I might not be hitting in the 4-hole and hitting bombs every game, but I want to be that guy who, if you have a spot on a show to fill, it's like, well, we know we can count on Dustin. So I want to be that kind of worker. I've always wanted to be that kind of worker and that kind of wrestler. But as far as character goes, I don't know many guys who prefer being a babyface, who prefer being a good guy. I love being a bad guy. I've always loved being a bad guy. It's easier to get people to boo you than it is to cheer you. Yeah. And I really enjoy being that slimy heel who finds a way to win, no matter what, who will break the rules, or who will go outside of anybody else's mindset to try and pull the win out. So I like being that slimy, nasty, win at all costs, win if you can, cheat if you must, heal.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do any sports in school?
In high school, I played everything I possibly could. From the time I was able to pick up a baseball and a glove and a bat, I was playing baseball. From the first moment I could be on a football team, I was on a football team. The first chance I got to wrestle, my amateur wrestling years go back to, I think I was 11 when I started amateur wrestling, and wrestled all the way through the whole time. Competitively amateur wrestling, I wrestled from the time I was 11 until I want to say I was in the Marine Corps still wrestling in 2006, 2007. So I've always loved being on the mats, loved wrestling. I played football in the Marine Corps as well, so I love playing football. So any sport I could possibly play, whether I'd ever tried it before or not, I will try. I take a lot of pride in being an athlete. And that's one thing you need as a good utility guy, someone they can count on to jump in the ring and wrestle anyone. You got to be a good athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did all those sports help you to become a wrestler?
Oh, gosh. So obviously amateur wrestling, having that mat ability, that ground game helps a lot. Being able to control your body, and keep from hurting yourself. The ability to hit the mat and protect yourself no matter what. Obviously, football, the contact that comes with football, you can't be afraid to get hit and play football. So I was never afraid to get hit. The speed that it takes to play baseball, I took a little bit from every sport I ever played, but I would say amateur wrestling, of course, helped the most in ring. Just because when I first started training, I had that ground game. I knew how to control my body. I knew how to manipulate someone else's body, and I knew how to protect myself. And I started out at 14 years old. So you have to know how to protect yourself if you're a kid going in there against grown men. So amateur wrestling certainly, above all, helped me, in the professional wrestling game.
Now, I saw that you were a Marine, and I was kind of curious, besides the athletic side of that and the training that goes with that, is there any other skills that you picked up from being a Marine that's helped you to become a wrestler at all?
Commitment. It takes, if nothing else, the ability to commit to something and follow orders and almost be selfless and, on a wrestling show, yes, everybody wants to be a superstar and everybody wants to, have their hand raised and, everybody wants to wear the belt and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's not your night. And you have to know your place on the wrestling card. It's one of the most important things to learn starting out and as you become a veteran is where your place is on the card. Not everybody can be Stone Cold Steve Austin. Not everybody can be AJ Styles. Mm-hmm. And AJ would tell you, like, he started out as a lower level guy too. Like he started out because of his size, because of his ability to work with anyone. Sometimes it's not the best thing. The ability to work with everyone sometimes will get you no more than enhancement talent spots. So sometimes you're just getting beat as that guy who can work with anyone. If you can make, a guy who's 7 foot tall look like a better athlete than he is, you're just going to get beat by that 7 foot guy quite a bit. So I would say the ability to know my place and to respect the past and the veterans that came before me and all that goes hand in hand with my time in the Marine Corps. Learning my place on the team, learning that sometimes it's just important to be that guy in the second match who's getting beat than it is to be the guy in the last match who's getting his hand raised. There's no different. In the Marine Corps, you have to swallow a lot of that pride and you have to take orders, from guys who may be younger than you, who may, who just played the game better than you did. And they got to where they were, before you got to that place. So they're giving you orders and you just got to swallow it and take it and move forward. And that I would say the growing pains that came with my time being in the Marine Corps, certainly helped further my wrestling career. I learned that selflessness and that ability to just swallow my pride and move forward and accept my spot on the card and know that everyone's doing a job to make the best show possible. So it's not your job to worry about, what is Dustin Tarr's, what about me? What about my moves? What about me getting my hand raised? That's not your job. Your job is to present the best card possible, not the best match, that you possibly can every time out. Not the best. It doesn't need to be a 20-minute, balls to the wall, amazing, high flying match if you're the second match, because who's going to follow that?
Exactly.
If you have the ladder match from WrestleMania 10 with Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon every single match, there's no ebb and flow to the show. It's not a roller coaster then. You got to know your spot. You got to know your place in life. So that my time in the Marine Corps certainly helped me with that.
Can you tell us what it was like to train with the Briscoe, Shannon Moore, and Taz?
Oh my God. Well, so the Briscoes are someone. Now I broke in 1995, and King Kong Bundy actually broke me in. Discovered me as an announcer. I was 14 years old, and I took a job as I took an internship as a freshman at a radio station, and a wrestling show rolled into town, and they needed an announcer for a special attraction match. So again, knowing your place on the card. They needed one announcer for one match on that one card, special attraction match. They gave me that spot because I was the youthful announcer, who did sports on the radio as an internship, and they thought it would be kitschy. They thought it would be cool to have the local kid do a match. Well, I showed up 3 hours early. I helped them put the ring together. I bumped around in the ring for the first time, and King Kong Bundy walks in the door and he's like, "Who's that kid?" And he gave me my first payday. He broke me into the business. He was the coolest, most humble, funny, amazing guy I had met to that point, and he got me started. But he didn't train me. He didn't, he couldn't take me on the road with him and give me matches and stuff like that. So I met the Briscoes very early on, and they did that for me. They opened their doors to me. We lived an hour and a half away from each other. So the Briscoes opened that door for me and kind of would give me the rub and take me, if I showed up to shows with them, they're like, "Hey, it's Dustin." And, they would make other guys think, "Oh, that guy must be pretty decent if he's rolling with the Briscoes, if he's a friend of the Briscoes." So I would go and work out with them, and I learned quite a bit from them and put that, tool in my belt. Then I went to the Marine Corps and got stationed in North Carolina and met Shannon and the Hardys and Shane Helms, and put more tools in my belt going to Shannon's school, the School of Punk, and working with them. It's a lot of this business is putting different tools in your belt. You want to be a good utility man, you got to have lots of tools in your belt. You want to have lots of tools in your belt, you got to go study different styles. So I'd go, again, King Kong Bundy taught me a lot of showmanship. The Briscoes taught me a lot of brawling and that like hardcore style, like the Briscoes would bring to the table, like that crazy, high-flying, high-risk, and at the same time brawling style that they bring to the table. And then I go to Shannon and the Hardys and Shane Helms, and I learned their style from them and trained with them. I trained with Shannon for probably a year or so while I was in the Marine Corps. Just going, and he, to his eternal credit, and again, he didn't know me from Adam. I show up at his door with one of his friends, and his friend says, "Hey, Shannon, we might want to look at this guy. He's really good. Get in the ring and work out." And he's like, "Okay, you can keep coming." And never charged me a dime. He was never looking for money from me. And this was a guy who was contracted by the WWE at the time. He was with the WWE at that point in time. He never asked for a dime from me. I came every week, worked out. He told me what I need to work on. A lot of what Shannon pushed to me, though, is, "Look, dude, you need to work on your body. You still look like somebody who should be sitting in the front row. So you need to get in the gym, work on your body, because you can obviously put a match together. But the reason no one's looking at you is because you look like some dude who's in the third row." So I started working on my body. Got at that point in time, I learned that from them. It's like they were currently on television. So they were telling me, you need to look like someone who should be on television. And then the career-changing moment for me, the biggest career-changing moment, the chance of a lifetime for me, came when Taz opened up the dojo. And I was in the first class. I sent my tapes in. I sent my information in. They called me within 48 hours. We would like to invite you to the class. Here's the details. Here's how long you'll be there. All this kind of stuff. And I got lucky enough to be the first class of I think he did 3 or 4 classes with like anywhere from 6 to 10 guys in each class. And it was, I mean, eye to eye. He was there with us every step of the way, worked with us every day on everything, because Taz is a guy. Number one, Taz is one of my heroes. I came up watching ECW. I'm, Northeast kid, so came up watching ECW, and Taz was one of my heroes. And the chance to work with him was life-changing. It was, I was so excited, and I was like a kid in a candy store. I go and work with Taz, and Taz is a guy who knows, he's seen every piece of the business, from working on the Indies to working with the WWE to working with Impact. He was with Impact at that point in time, and he had done everything from wrestle to corner somebody to announcing to being an agent to being in the production meetings at WWE. He knew everything that everyone was looking for. So he gave me a lot of tools from my tool belt in that time with him. And I still talk to him today. I just talked to him a couple of weeks ago about doing something with AEW. He's never stopped looking out for his guys, for his dojo guys who came and did that dojo with him. It was his baby. It was his pet project. It was the developmental before WWE had developmental. Before there was a performance center, there was a Team Taz dojo. And I will say that until the day I die. They took that idea from him, and yes, they made it $1 billion idea. But Taz, that idea started with the Team Taz dojo, that performance center, because that wasn't a training school. That was a finishing school. That was a clinic for guys who had been in the business for 5 years or more, who just needed those last little tweaks to their game. And again, to Taz's credit, within 24 hours of leaving the dojo, I was getting a call from Impact Wrestling. When can you come in? When can you work with us? We want to get you in here as soon as possible. And before I knew it, I was on my way to Orlando.
Cool.
I read that you trained your brother with the Briscoes. If that is true, is it harder or easier to train your brother than another person?
Harder. It's way harder to train a sibling than it is to train anybody, because you want to be a perfectionist. Obviously, you want to, you don't want to be easy on them. And at the same time, you certainly don't want to hurt them or hurt their chances going forward. And my brother broke in 2005, and it was as simple as I had a show in Norfolk, Virginia, and the promoter, it was a tag match that the promoter wanted to put on. And the last second, the guy dropped out of the tag match. And the promoter called me. He's like, "Hey, man, I need a tag team partner for you. I don't know anybody. What do you think? Who can you tag with?" And I just threw it out there. My brother was in college at the time and had never, I take that back. He had been in the ring one time with the Briscoes, just as like a little fun thing that we were doing. He showed up to train with me one day. And I just threw it out there. I said, my brother Chris could probably fill that spot for you, because I knew that if nothing else, Chris could get the hot tag from me after I took most of the beating, most of the work. He could get the hot tag from me, come in, throw some punches, some drop kicks, get the crowd fired up, which is exactly what he did. And the guy was like, is he trained? Can he work? And I was like, he has worked before. He has had a couple of training sessions before. And he's like, okay, give him a call, see if he'll come in and see what his rate is. And I called my brother, and my brother jumped on it, and he hasn't looked back since. That was 2005. And then we got out of that match, and he was so amped. He was so excited that the first thing he did upon coming to the back and getting some feedback from some of the boys, the first thing he did was say, okay, what do we do now? How do I get trained? Where do I need to go? And myself and Aiden Chambers and the Briscoes worked with him and got him trained up. And my brother bought his own ring and got himself, trained himself as well, and had us come and train him in his backyard. And he's still going today. So it worked out.
Wow. Now, I got a question for you. Did you ask that question because you're looking to train Jackson when he's a little bit older? Okay.
No.
Mason's a middle school wrestler, and his 6-year-old brother is obsessed with wrestling as well. So I was wondering if you're looking for some insight into that question.
It is hard to train a sibling.
Now, we kind of take a little while. We take a long time when we come to do our preparation. But we like to, when we're interviewing somebody, we like to go and kind of research them a little bit, find out some interesting things, go and find out a little bit more about them before we start them. This one question has kind of developed over probably about the period of a month. And each time I add to it, it kind of gets a little bit more and more sad. So I started off with, I saw on social media that you posted about the wrestler Bruiser. We went to see him. We've seen him a few times at MCW. He passed away from leukemia. We actually reviewed the tribute show to him. And I was certainly going to ask you about that. Then also recently as well, we had the passing of Brody Lee as well. From my point of view, far too young of an age. Same with Bruiser as well, of course. And then I was going to ask you about how these deaths have kind of affected people, particularly indie wrestlers, when you see people dying that young. But then also, of course, and now I've lost my train of thought because I'm right in the middle of this and it's kind of emotional to me. Last week, the passing of Pork Chop Johnson as well, which I think hit me harder than any that I'd seen before. For somebody in their 30s, I didn't see those other ones. Bruiser, we kind of knew about just because it was not a good situation that he was in.
Right.
I guess the question I'm asking is, and it might be difficult because I'm not sure if you're actually wrestling right now with the pandemic, but what sort of, from your impressions, and you obviously talk to more wrestlers than what we do, how has that impacted wrestlers, the deaths of 3 people so close to each other?
They come in threes, right? I
guess so. Yeah.
Terrible. So RJ, the Bruiser, wonderful, wonderful man who fought and fought and fought that disease and until, his time was up, and it's awful. And, I've known him for years and years and years, know his wife. Of course he's, I'm a Marylander, so, Maryland Championship Wrestling is huge, and has been for years and years and years. And it was that, he and Danny, that was their baby, and they're, man, they made it fantastic. MCW is an awesome company full of awesome guys. And RJ was the heart and soul of that company for so long. And again, you just feel awful for his family, for his closer friends, and his memory will live on. I can honestly say that he will live on through MCW and through his wife's work. Tara is nonstop, with her social media stuff and with MCW, and she's gonna have her hands in the business, no matter what. She's been in the business for as long as I've been in the business, so I think she's gonna do his memory well. I'm proud of her and what she's done for RJ, for RJ's memory, for the business. It's been awesome. She's a strong woman. Brody, man, when that happened, I didn't know he was sick. So many people didn't know he was sick.
Nobody knew, yeah.
And, my brother called me, I want to say, probably a couple months before. So his last match, I want to say, was October. So like late November, my brother called me and he's like, hey man, like, is Brody okay? Is he hurt? What's going on? Because we haven't seen him. He hasn't been on TV. He dropped the belt back to Cody, and he was such a prominent figure in AEW and such a locker room leader so fast. And then he was gone, and very few people knew he was sick. And I've been around Brody a couple handfuls of times in my wrestling life, and he was always so great, always fun, always happy, always smiling, always ribbing somebody, always having a good time. He was a bright spot in any locker room he was in. When that happened, it felt like a gut punch. And again, I only knew him, I was only around him a couple handfuls of times. I have very close friends in the business who were very close friends with him. So I immediately reached out to them, and just said, and I won't say their names just for, privacy. But I immediately reached out and I was like, listen, I only was around Brody a couple handfuls of times, and this has hit me hard. So how are you doing? And just checking in on everybody. And man, for for those people, it was like, gosh, it was like losing a mentor. It was like losing a brother. It was losing a brother. It was, and for AEW, I can't imagine. And again, I reached out to some of those guys there, AEW, and it was like the equivalent if The Undertaker passed away.
Sure.
Losing that kind of leader in their locker room with that much knowledge and that much sense of who he is as a wrestler, because that's so much of the battle is knowing who you are as a performer. And man, Brody knew who he was. The Big Rig knew who he was as a performer and helped everybody else as far as who they were. And so we were all shocked and still reeling. And you think about, little Brody, who I've met twice, I think. And of course, his wife and the youngest child who I've never met. I feel so terrible for them. I feel it's being a father myself, and I'm sure you can concur. How do you even justify that with words? Like, for them to lose their dad like that fast, and just you can never prepare for something like that. But luckily, again, AEW, that tribute show was the best tribute show I've ever seen for anyone ever. They did that man right and did his memory right. And they continue to, if nothing else, you can say what you want about Tony Khan, but man, that guy, he's a special dude, taking care of that family like he is, giving little Brody a contract. And
yeah,
I'll share a story about little Brody. Like, the 2 times that I was around him, it was so weird. It's so weird bringing, and again, you'll see where I'm going here as a dad, and, bringing a little kid into a wrestling locker room is a weird thing. Like, I could not imagine bringing my son or my daughter into a wrestling locker room and them not being just wide-eyed, like, what is going on here? Because the wrestling locker room is like a jungle sometimes. And those guys, that language and boundaries, and it's like, so the couple of times that I met him, it was in the wrestling locker room. And there are bad words being said left and right. And little Brody is just not caring at all. And I think he was like 4 or 5 at the time. And he and Brody is like, it was like, this kid is one of the boys. Like, I came out of this situation thinking that kid is one of the boys and is going to go on and probably be something in the wrestling business, because he fit into the locker room somehow as a little kid. And still does, I'm sure. And I haven't been to AEW, and I don't know what the situation there, but I'm sure little Brody is one of the boys in the locker room, period. They treat him and handle him like an equal, and which is so cool and so awesome for him. And I want to say there's nothing that could lighten that impact of losing a father like that. But if anything could, or if the AEW has gone out of their way and Tony Khan has gone out of their way to lessen that impact, that blow to that family. And I think they're doing a phenomenal job. And little Brody is one of the boys. And I have no doubt that he's going to be somebody in the business, and it's going to be a great ride for him going forward. And he's going to take everything that his dad taught him and do his dad proud. I know he is. And then Pork Chop. Man. And I know, did you guys meet Pork Chop a couple times?
Yeah.
Okay. That guy, my first thought was I never got to put him over, because I always said from the first day I met him, he had this energy that you couldn't help but smile around this guy. You couldn't help but laugh and just enjoy. He enjoyed life so much that he made you enjoy life. And you walked away feeling like a better person by proxy. Pork Chop, I always said, from the time Chris and I met him, my brother and I, when we met him, we wanted to work. We immediately went to PQ, who, kayfabe, he is the booker of N.E.W. We ran to PQ, we're like, we want to work with Pork Chop. Like, we're begging, like, to work with this guy and to bump around with him, because Pork Chop was a unique talent where he's very old school. So you had to be someone who could work with anyone in order to work with Pork Chop. And that's not a knock on Pork Chop. He's just an old school talent. He's just a guy, even being as young as he is, I looked at him and I was like, well, clearly he's doing a junkyard dog thing. But, like, we could make that work. Like, I could have the people rocking and rolling just because I'm bumping all over the place for him. So I immediately started begging to work Pork Chop and never stopped. Like, every time I was on a show with him, I'm like, whatever you have for me, erase it. And I want to work with Pork Chop, and I want to bump all over for this guy, and I want to put him over. And I told him immediately after meeting him, I said, I'm going to put you over. We are going to work together, and I'm going to put you over, and it's going to be the most fun you've ever had in a match. And we never got to have that match. And selfishly, when I heard he passed, that was my first thought. I'm like, this pandemic kept me from working with this guy and putting this guy over like he should be put over. And you know, you listen, someone who enjoys life as much as he did, man, you have to give it up for that person. You have to, like, I never saw him frown. I never saw him upset. I never saw him down about anything. He was so happy and jovial and just living life to the fullest. And when somebody passes, it's very cliche to say, man, he's so full of life. That guy was legit full of life and gave it to you. Like, I'm all about energy. You can feel that guy's energy. When you walked into a room, you could feel his energy, and he made you feel better. And selfishly, I'm going to miss that about that. I'm going to miss going into a locker room and feeling better about, you know, just life and the world, because that guy is so good. And that guy is so happy and so present in the moment and enjoying this so much. It's like, we get to go out there and have fun and play a game, man. I get to play good guy and you get to play bad guy, and we get to beat each other up, and this is fun. He's right. It is fun. It's supposed to be fun. Why can't it just be fun all the time? You know? And I took that from him, and I only was around the guy for a brief period, you know, of his 33 years. But man, I'm going to take that from him, and I'm going to go forward with that, because what a sweet, sweet, gentle soul. And to say he will be sorely missed is a vast understatement. Yeah. I really appreciate him. I appreciate his time on this earth, and I won't forget him. And none of us will. None of us will.
The tribute that I saw Classic Pro Wrestling do on Facebook, I've never seen so many grown men go wide as a sheet, lost for words, and sometimes just have to go, I can't say anything else, and you could see them having to switch off because you knew they were going to break down. The impact that he had on people close to him was obvious. I want to share a couple of stories. Mason, I think you might probably know these already, and I mentioned this on another podcast as well. My first thought was that energy that you talked about. As soon as first time I saw him, he comes out, he's like, whoo, whoo. And he's like, whoa, everyone's suddenly paying attention. You got all the kids there who are loving it, who know who he is. And you were like, oh, I'm rooting for this guy. This is the guy I want to see. He got my attention straight away. And the second one is, and I don't remember how this happened. Normally, I take at least one of the boys with me to a wrestling match. I rarely go to a wrestling match by myself now because it's a shared activity. Yeah. I went to a Classic Pro Wrestling event and can't remember the situation. Anyway, Pork Chop was actually at the merch table, and I'd never seen him at the merch table before. He'd actually had his match, and he'd actually injured his arm. And as he came out to the merch table, his arm's in a sling. And it was his right arm, I think. And I kind of asked him, I said, oh, I see you got an 8x10. Like, can we get an autograph so I can take it back for my boys? And he's like, I don't think I can write. He's like, I can try doing it left-handed if you like. I was like, sure, that's fine. I was like, that'll be a great story. Like, you broke your wrist or whatever. I can't remember the exact injury he said. And I can tell the boys, you had to write it with your wrong hand. I got a selfie with him, which I never do with wrestlers, but it was like... It was like, it's Pork Chop. I was like, this is cool. I like this guy. I want a picture with him. Normally, I'd push the boys in front. Here you go. Let me get a picture with you. The next day, we saw him 100 miles north at an organization when both of us went. He was in a Royal Rumble match literally the day after. No sling, anything. And as soon as I realized that, I was like, oh my gosh, the length that he went to sell that story just for a few hours longer. Yeah. He didn't have to do that. He could have just come out and said, oh, I'm okay now. Like, it was a little bit of a bump. I'm okay. He had the sling on. He sold the whole thing for the rest of that show. He had no idea that I would be at that event. To me, that was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful.
A very old school talent, wise beyond his years. And, just selling that injury for that much longer, might not have meant anything to him, but he knew it meant something to whoever saw that, and it certainly means something to me. Again, I started a long, long time ago. So that kind of stuff goes a long way with me. But I'll say the love that we have for Porkchop, the tributes that you saw, and the grown men weeping uncontrollably, that has nothing to do with wrestling, and that's a testament to that man. The love that we have for him, it has nothing to do with who he was as a wrestler. It's who he was as a human being, and the mark that he makes on the world as a human being, and the way that he selflessly makes people feel, or made people feel throughout his life. That's a special human being. He was certainly not defined as a pro wrestler, even though we know him as Porkchop, which is his wrestling persona. He was not defined as a pro wrestler. This was a special man, and all man, certainly all man, who, he was a very special human being. And again, we'll never forget him. And it has nothing to do with the wrestling business. I have lots of friends who I've met in wrestling that if I would met them in real life, I would be just as connected to them. And Porkchop is certainly one of those men. If you met him at the gas station, he would make you feel just as special as if you paid to see him wrestle. That's a special dude.
Yeah. All right, Mason, go ahead.
I saw this one video of Brody Lee's son when he was in the locker room fighting with Adam Cole.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that wasn't the locker room. That was at a New Year's Eve party. And of course, Adam is he's with Britt Baker. I think that's widely known, right? He and Britt Baker are an item. So he goes, and they live down there. So, he went and enjoyed his New Year's Eve with Britt. And they had the big, party there, as they do quite a bit. The AEW locker room does, at the hotel they stay at. And I want to say, that was right after, of course, Brody passed the day after Christmas, I think.
Yeah.
And this was New Year's Eve, so just a few days before. And I mean, what a testament to that family, how they just press on. 4 days after Dad passed, I'm going to go and I'm going to be around the boys because it's what's normal to me. So that's what he did. Little Brody was around the boys and he was feeling better. And, and Adam's one of those guys. I've been around Adam quite a bit too. He's a good dude. He, that doesn't get said a whole lot, but Adam Cole is a good dude. And I'm sure he was happy to have that videoed where little Brody he's putting little Brody over basically. And then that video went viral, went mainstream. And I'm sure Adam Cole was happy about that. And I'm sure, Big Brody would have been happy about that too.
We first saw you at N.E.W. Wrestling in North Carolina in June 2019, which we attended to see Franco Vargo wrestle Ethan Page. It looked like Bo Crockett and Jake Hollister had stolen your tag team belts, as we only got to see that one event. Can you tell us how that story got to that point and how it developed?
Sure. Wow. How do you guys remember this stuff? Okay. So Jake and Bo. So when I first got to N.E.W., I was simply an enhancement talent. That's how I make my debut usually everywhere I go. I'm just a good hand. So I just go there and put people over and enjoy my time. And it wasn't long before Dewan and I started teaming and became, BFFs, good friends. And Bo and Jake being the snakes in the grass, the real nasty heels. We beat them a couple of times. One of the times that we beat them, that we ended up worse for the wear, I believe, after the match, and they ran off with our belts. And the very next show, I believe we beat them, one of us beat the other one, and we got our belts back. And then sorry, but I turned on Dewan and beat him into the ground, and Bo and Jake stole the victory and legitimately won the tag belts and walked off into the sunset. And then I showed my true self, I guess, and became a bad guy. And Dewan and I never had our blow off match. He is a coward and he ran away from me, and he actually got called to duty. Something I understand. Dewan's in the Navy, and he got called into action to go overseas, and he did about a 6-month tour overseas while I was wreaking havoc on N.E.W., winning the N.E.W. Heavyweight Championship from Franco Varga and all that good stuff. And I'm still waiting to get my hands on Dewan O'Neil. Whenever he comes back, to N.E.W. or wherever he comes back to, I'll be there, and I'm gonna, finish him off.
See, that was interesting earlier, and I kind of saved this because you said that you like being the bad guy. And I was thinking, when we saw you at N.E.W., you were actually the good guy in that match.
I was.
Both Crockett and Jake Hollister were the heels for that one. And interestingly, when we went to see that match as well, we'd only ever seen Franco as a heel. He was a big heel at Infinite Pro Wrestling, I want to say. And then when he came out and everyone's cheering for him, whoa, you got knocked us over with a face. We're like, what the heck? I was like, I guess we assumed that Ethan Page was going to be the face for this one. Ethan's a great heel, but for some reason, I assumed that he was going to be the face for that one, that Franco was going to be the heel, and I assumed that there would be some cheating, there'd be like a low blow so Franco can win, and all, because obviously we knew he wasn't going to lose his title. You're not going to give it to Ethan Page and he'd take it up to Canada. So no, I thought that was kind of interesting, that the expectation of one thing and then getting totally another thing. Now, the first time we actually heard your name we actually talked to Dewan the night before. We were actually at the Orange County Fair. I can't remember the organization. I want to say UEW, UCW, something like that.
UEW, yes.
Yeah, and my 5-year-old at the time, he was like, okay, we got to go. It's kind of late. And he's like, I want to go say hi to Dewan. I was like, we're going to see him tomorrow. You realize
everyone loves Dewan.
Oh, absolutely. So, of course, there's all people around him, wanted to talk with him. So we kind of waited our turn. And then we came up and he talked to him. And, yeah, he mentioned the fact, he said, I'm tagging with Dustin tomorrow. Do you know who Dustin is? And I said, no, I don't at this point. So that was the first time we'd actually heard your name mentioned. But, yes, I didn't know that about Dewan. I didn't know he was in the Navy, actually. That was really interesting. Huh.
Oh, yeah. That's probably the only thing I like about him. He serves our country proudly in the United States Navy, and we had the big beatdown. He did not know he was going to get called away to serve, and then we had the big showdown where I beat him down after the match, after Bo and Jake won, I think, and they ran off with the belts, and he helped me up, I think, and I gave him a nice low blow and put a pile driver on him and left him laying. We were going to have a big blow-off match or a couple of blow-off matches, and it never came to fruition because I want to say the next week he got called away. So we're going to get that match eventually. Him and I are going to have that match. I promise you that.
I am hoping we've had our vaccines, and I'm hoping we can travel down to North Carolina. It's been a long time since we've seen indie wrestling.
It's been way too long.
I'd like to see some more. Yeah, way too long. All right, let's get to the final questions. We've got a mix of wrestling questions and our random questions that we like to ask everybody as well. Take it away, Mason.
If you have any, what are your finishing moves?
Oh, gosh. So I get asked this question a lot. Now, a long time ago, here's a lesson for you. A long time ago, in a locker room far, far away, I was in a match with Christian York. Are you guys familiar with Christian York?
I am not.
No,
or if you've seen him, I can't bring his face to mind.
You're certainly familiar with Joey Matthews.
Yes.
Okay, so Merck and York were tag partners forever. They got signed to ECW. They got signed to WCW. At one point in time, York was signed with TNA. Joey Mercury, of course, was one of the WWE tag champions for a while, and then he became I think he was one of Seth Rollins' stooges and all that kind of stuff. So I'm from that old school of York and Mercury, or York and Matthews at the time, where I came up with, again, them and the Briscoes and all that at MCW. That's where I started. I want to say the first match I announced, Christian York and Joey Matthews were involved in it in 1995. So they've known me for a long time. So I was in a match with Christian York. It was a multi-man match, and York was going over. And again, this was an indie show, and I learned a very valuable lesson from Christian York that night. Somebody was like, "What's your finish?" And York goes, "Finish? We don't have TV here. Why would I need a finish?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why would we? Why do we have to?" It was his first time there. It was my first time. Why would we need to establish a finish? Because who knows if we were going to come back? Why not just do, because he was the bad guy, why not just do a nasty roll-up with the tights or something like that? Why do you have to have a finish like that? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. If I'm a bad guy and I'm just basically traveling all over as the bad guy, look, Ric Flair's finish is the figure four, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many matches have you seen him win with the figure four?
Loads.
Oh, gosh. I don't know.
I would say mostly It's Ric Flair giving somebody a low blow and rolling him up with the tights or something like that. He's the dirtiest player in the game.
Certainly a poke in the eye as well.
Yeah,
thumb to the eye.
sure.
I certainly see. I'm thinking more thumb to the eyes. I'm saying, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So Christian York had that same mindset where it's like, if I'm traveling all over, you know, and winning matches and I'm the bad guy, I don't want to establish a cool finish. I want you to hate me. I want to just barely eke out a win so that you want to see me come back and you want to see the good guy kick my butt. It was he threw it off as a you know, a statement in the wind. And I just took it and I'm like, he's absolutely right. Why would I need some kind of cool finish that they're going to cheer? I'm the bad guy. So as a bad guy, which is who I love to be, I don't really have a finish. If somebody asked me to beat them with a big impact move, it's the package pile driver, which I've used for years and years and years. But the majority of the time, if they leave it up to me, I want that crowd to want me to come back so that babyface, that good guy, can beat me up. So I want to just roll him up and grab the tights, or I want to use the ropes to beat him, or I want some kind of cheap way out so that you want to see that good guy beat me up later on. So as far as signature moves and stuff like that, I love roll-ups, and so I love fancy roll-ups where I can hook the tights or whatever. I mean, I remember I won somebody's heavyweight title one time for the first time ever with there was a wrestler a long time, Dos Caras, Alberto Del Rio's father, actually. He used the Dos Caras clutch, which was it's a very cool cradle. You could probably YouTube it right now. I won a championship with that one time, just because it was a cool roll-up finish. I don't need an impactful finish to beat you. I'm not 6'5" and almost 300 pounds. I'm a small guy. I'm 5'9" and 230 pounds. So I don't need some kind of crazy impactful finish. I can come off the top rope, but I shouldn't need to, you know? So I've used the frog splash from time to time as a good guy. But as a bad guy, which is what I mostly am, it's just a quick roll up.
Now, that's a question that Mason added this time to the end. That's the first time you've actually asked that. And that actually got me thinking while you were talking there. Is that easier then to do as a tag team rather than a singles? Because I'm thinking the number of matches I can think of when you have the tag team partner distracts the ref, and then suddenly they could be a lobe. Is that something easier that's to establish as the heel character, or is it easier to kind of put together to get to that finish, I guess is what I'm saying, as a tag team rather than a singles wrestler? Of course.
And I love your mindset there. That tag partner is a tool to use. You know, he can be a prop. My brother, he would hate me saying this, but he can be a prop for me. So the Tarr Dynasty, you know, myself and my brother, we're props for each other. So, you know, if it's my time to get the pin over somebody, Chris, my brother, is a prop to help me distract and get that pin. No different than if we're the good guys. It's the same. I could be a distraction for the heels so that Chris can get the win, the babyface can get the win. And we do have tag team finishes and stuff like that, and fancy stuff that if we need to bust out, we do. But again, I'd rather at an indie show have a competitive match where you guys want to see us come back again and have another competitive match. You know, I don't want to give you the same thing every time. I want to mix it up and give you some wild, you know, some like cool roll-ups and some fun, you know, just some fun stuff where you're like, I want to see them have another competitive match with those guys. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Tag team wrestling, it's easier. There are more moving parts. It can be more complicated because there are more moving parts. But I look at it like it's easier because there are more moving parts where I can distract you and we can play a little, you know, it can be a magic act. It can be a nice little magic act where I distract you with this, you know, I show you this hand and actually hit you with the other hand, that kind of thing.
Have you ever had any injuries that made you take time off wrestling?
Yes. Terrible one, actually, that happened at the dojo. One guy got kind of weaseled his way in, and this is not the fault of anybody's. He weaseled his way in. He was untrained, and he sent in a highlight video, basically, that showed that he was this great athlete who could do all this cool stuff, and he couldn't even properly do a hip toss. And he came in and he gave me a bad throw, and I landed full load on my shoulder, and my shoulder exploded. Rotator cuff, labrum, clavicle, everything just exploded. And I jumped up and gave that kid a receipt that he probably still feels. And this was 10 years ago now. So I jumped up and gave him a drop kick that he probably still feels today. And then I rolled out of the ring and looked at the trainer, and I was like, I think my shoulder exploded. And he goes, I think it did too. Let's take it to get looked at. And sure enough, he was right. Everything in the shoulder had exploded. I pumped it full of cortisone for months and months and months, which is, Mason, that's a bad thing to do. If you ever have an injury, don't pump it full of cortisone, because that is a Band-Aid that will eventually fall off. So for I want to say almost a year, I pumped it full of cortisone and kept on wrestling. And then finally I had to give in. I had to tap out and have the surgery. And I probably wasn't right for a solid year. Just the rehab that it takes to rebuild a shoulder, and I had never experienced anything like that. And, it feels good today, luckily, but I had to take quite a bit of time off, and I hated it. And I'm still, gosh, I think about it today, and I still get angry at that kid who weaseled his way into the dojo, and that was it. But yeah, you would think everybody who made his way in there knew what they were doing, but that kid did not. Backyarder at most, never heard from him again. After that dojo, he left, and we never heard his name again. But yeah, terrible, terrible injury. The only one I've ever had like that. And I'm still mad about it. Because I lost, and that was in my prime. I lost a year of my wrestling career in my prime. When I had just been to Impact. I had just been to Impact Wrestling, had a week's worth of television there. And then the next time I was in the ring, my shoulder exploded because a kid didn't know how to give a hip toss properly. So, yeah.
Well, that answered another one of my questions. I didn't know that receipts were real, because I saw it in Fighting with My Family, and I didn't know if that was actually real.
Oh, yeah. Receipts are real. I've given quite a few. Again, it goes with learning how to take care of yourself properly. And I came up with some hardcore school, with some hardcore training with some old school guys. From the beginning. King Kong Bundy is old school. The Briscoes are old school. The Briscoes were trained by Gypsy Joe, and Gypsy Joe is one of the toughest, crazy old men you ever know in wrestling. And then Shannon and Shane Helms and the Hardys, again, they were on TV at the time. They were old school. And then Taz, it doesn't get much more old school than Taz. Taz is an old judo player. If anyone can take care of themselves, Taz can. So I came up with a lot of different schools that took care of that. You had to be a tough guy, and you had to know how to take care of yourself in there. And again, my background as an amateur wrestler, as someone who's in the Marine Corps, I'm not going to let anyone get over on me like that. So receipts are very real. The wrestling business as a whole has gotten more user friendly, I should say, but it still happens. You still see it on TV all the time. Like we'll be watching wrestling, and somebody will take a stiff shot, and I'll be like, "Oh, receipt is coming." And sure enough, a receipt will be on the way very shortly, especially if it's an old school guy in there who I know was trained properly. Because you don't want anybody to take advantage of you in there.
Of course.
If you could wrestle against anyone or tag with anyone, who would that wrestler be?
Wow. What a great question, Mason. If I could work do they have to be current, or is this anyone in time and space?
You can do both if you prefer. We leave this very open-ended.
Doesn't even have to be a wrestler.
If I could wrestle anyone,
I want to wrestle Scott again.
Whenever you're ready, Mason, me and you, if I can wrestle anyone, anytime. Okay. But seriously, whenever you're ready, Mason. Let's see. If I could wrestle anyone, past, present, future, in time and space, let's say retired guys. First and foremost, I would say the best ever, in my opinion, is Shawn Michaels. And early on in my life, I was in the Bret Hart camp. After being in the business for a while, I'm no longer in that Bret Hart camp. I'm in that Shawn Michaels camp. I think he's the greatest ever. I'd love to have had the chance to be in the ring with him and learn from him. So that takes care of retired. Current active stars in the wrestling business. I'll go on the youth side. MJF is just phenomenal. That guy is so far beyond his years. I mean, I think he's 24. I think he's 24 years old or something crazy like that.
That's about right.
How is anyone that good at 24 years old? He is amazing, from his delivery to his timing to his ability to make things look crisp and powerful and real. And then at the same time, he can do the entertaining. So he can do that, he can do the shtick. He can go out there with Chris Jericho and do a musical number, and it's still entertaining and fun. And he's just, that guy can do it all. He never ceases to amaze me. If I'm doing anything else in the house and AEW is on the TV, if his music hits, I stop and I watch. And he's that guy right now in the wrestling business that you have to stop and watch, because that is greatness at work right there. He's outstanding beyond his years.
You want to tell Dustin your encounter with MJF?
You had an encounter with MJF? Oh, my God.
About
Fantastic.
2.5 years ago, I think it was, at an indie event. At this point, he was just starting to get some buzz as a 21-year-old.
Yep.
And we knew the card, and I said, the person we're going to talk to is MJF. I didn't really know anything about him at that time, but I'd heard the buzz around him, and I was like, that's the person we're going to go chat to. All right, Mason, go ahead.
So I think we were the first people to come up to him at his merch table, and he was yelling all over the place. And he was yelling, first person to approach him to get something was a British person.
Yep. He's like, yep, even the Brit knows you come and talk to MJF. Oh, he's got some good money. His money's good for me. He's shouting at everybody. You could not be not drawn to him. Like, he commanded that attention straight away. It was fantastic.
He's always on. Always on.
Yep.
And during the picture, I was standing in front of me, and he was just glaring at me in the picture.
His autograph is I'm better than you, Mason, you know it, or something like that effect. He's holding, normally you go for the picture, and they're all smiles and whatever, they got their arm around you. He is stood there, and he is glaring at Mason. I am killing myself, because I can see the picture. Mason has no idea at all. It's absolutely perfect. It was one of the best pictures we've ever taken. And then you hear stories like, I think it was at Starrcade, where some people got half-price pictures, and he demanded the list. Who got half price? I'm only appearing in half of the picture. And it's like, that is brilliant. I would have loved, if I only got half a picture, I would love it, because that's an even better story than getting.
That's a better story.
Absolutely.
And who thinks about that kind of stuff nowadays?
Of course. It reminded me of that thing with Pork Chop. Like, the left-handed autograph for me was perfect, because it had a story that connected it with it. And same with that. Hey, I paid this money for a picture with MJF, and I only got half of him in the picture because I got it. It is brilliant. Yeah, we're big fans.
It is really. And I'll tell you who he reminds me of. And I some people may take this as a slight, but a lot of people sleep on the Miz. Mike Mizanin is that guy who should never have made it, and he did. To the dismay of a lot of people, but to his eternal credit, he is one of those guys who is always on. He knows who the Miz is, and the Miz is always on, and he is box office because of it. And because he's always on, the WWE knows that they can count on him to go and do any appearance anywhere, no matter what. And this guy is going to be the Miz, and he's going to be 100%. I don't care if he's done. I've seen him do probably 50 some interviews in a day, and that 50th interview gets the same kind of attention as that first interview. He's always on, and MJF is just like that. He is that guy that you can build a promotion around. He's that guy you can give a television show to. I mean, Miz has, what is the show with Maurice? Ms. and Mrs.
Ms. and Mrs.
Hey, eventually 10 years, 15 years down the road, you could see MJF doing that, because he's such a character. He's so on, and you want to know more about that guy, but at the same time, you're kind of afraid to know more about that guy. Like, he breaks that fourth wall where it's like, I'm not sure where MJF ends and the real person begins. And the ability to do that in 2021 is amazing, because you guys as fans, have so much access to us. I mean, look at this. Like, how many of these interviews have you guys done? And I'm sure guys are falling all over themselves really to do these interviews because it's our way to get ourselves out there nowadays. I love doing this kind of stuff. I love doing press. I love doing radio because it's a great way to get ourselves out there. But by the same token, you guys get to know the real person. So where the bad guy Dustin Tarr ends and the real dude Dustin Tarr begins, right? You certainly do now. Well, with MJF, you don't know that. And you probably never will. And that is fantastic. That is money right there. That guy's box office.
Yeah.
Go on. I know you want. I was thinking, come on, Mason, pick up on my thoughts. I know you want to say this. Go on.
On YouTube, there's this documentary on MJF by Kenny Johnson. And even then, he doesn't show the real MJF.
No.
Have you seen it?
I have not, but that doesn't surprise me because he never will. Because here's the thing, and this is coming from a businessman, if you learn the real MJF, he becomes less valuable.
Yeah.
If you guys see every part of his life, and it's like, because look, Miz and Mrs., that's Miz and Maurice still being those characters that you see on TV. So they don't lose the value. They don't lose any value there. I would say when Hulk Hogan did the Hulk Hogan reality show, he probably lost a lot of value because you got to see some pieces of Hulk Hogan that you probably didn't need to see. That he loses a lot of that luster. MJF would never do something like that. He would probably end up on a show like Miz and Mrs. because, again, that's those characters in a reality TV setting. That's no different than what you see on SmackDown or Raw. I would say you will never see the real Maxwell Jacob Friedman or anything like that. You will never see that real person because he's smart enough to know if you see that real dude, he loses value to AEW or whoever he's with. So kudos to him because that is almost impossible to do in 2021 as an indie guy.
And as he was 21, I think, when that was made, I loved it. I watched it and I said, you need to watch this. And then you watched it and you were like, was that real? Like, which part? I love the fact they could keep that. Yeah. Disbelief.
The suspension of disbelief.
Yep.
He's able to keep that suspension of disbelief where you don't know. You just don't know. It's brilliant. He's a brilliant guy.
What was your favorite match of your career?
Anytime that I have been in the ring with my two brothers, I know we didn't talk about Aiden Chambers much, but so Chris Tarr is my real brother. Aiden Chambers is my adopted brother. Anytime I've ever been in the ring with either of those guys, it's been magic. It's been so much fun, no matter what's going on. Aiden and I, Chris and I, not so much, but Aiden and I have had our times where we wanted to kill each other because we were married on the road for 10 years. We rode together. We roomed together. We lived together. It was nonstop in each other's faces on the road for forever. And gosh, there were times where we wanted to pull each other's throats out, but when we got in the ring, when the bell rang, all that went away. And we were the characters and we were able to have a good time and it was magic. Whether we were tagging or working against each other, there were several times where Aiden Chambers and I got jobs based on our work with each other, working against each other. So it was always magic. He was always so easy to work with. He's always so much fun. And I hope that he comes back and he's been retired now. We got him to come out of retirement one time in 2019, early 2019. And that was it. He's only wrestled that one time in like 5 years. But I hope he comes back at some points because he's our Shawn Michaels. He's magic when he gets out there, and it's just effortless for him. But anytime I'm in the ring with Aiden, it's magic. Anytime I'm in the ring with Chris as a tag partner, we haven't had a chance to wrestle against each other as much on shows, but as a tag partner, again, it's effortless almost. It's so much fun. So anytime I've ever been with them, my favorite match one-on-one that I've ever had in my entire life would probably be against Bobby Shields at Impact on St. Patty's Day in 2011. Yeah, if you guys can dig up that match, good luck. But if you guys could dig up that match, myself and Bobby Shields, Impact television taping, 2011, St. Patty's Day, I think it was. There's your task, Mason. do some deep diving, some digging, because I can't find it. Bobby Shields can't find it.
Oh.
It's a phenomenal match. It was one of the best matches of my career. It almost got us jobs. And we just had a great time, and it was in front of a huge crowd. We got paid a good amount of money, and it was fun. So yeah, that's my favorite match, just based on it was on a big stage. I left it all in the ring. He left it all in the ring. I got my hand raised at Impact, and no one can find that tape anywhere.
We got Impact Plus, so we got a large catalog.
Hey, there you go. Maybe you can find it.
There's another character who really is different. When we first saw Bobby Shields at Nova Pro, he was the big heel. Always. It was always the cheat in every single. And then we go up to MCW, and it's Robbie, and it's Bobby. And it's like, oh my God. I didn't even recognize that it was Bobby Shields to begin with. I was like, it was only later when I was like, oh my gosh. So huge turnaround.
I've known Bobby for, I want to say 15 years. And I've always known him as Bobby the Body. He's always been the almost like Ravishing Rick Rude, where it's a lot of pomp and circumstance. It's a lot of poses. And Bobby is an amazing talent. Bobby can do almost anything out there. Yeah. But he really knew from very early on, and he's a student of Brody Lee. I know you guys probably don't know that, but Bobby Shields is actually, So he and Brody Lee go way back, and Brody actually imparted quite a bit of wisdom on him. Bobby is one of the guys when Brody passed away that I checked on, because I knew how much Brody meant to him, and I was hurting for Bobby, and Bobby was hurting. Cool. If you went back and look at Bobby's tweets when Brody passed, oh man, he was hurting bad. He was suffering. So he's one of the best talents I've ever known, and Brody has a lot to do with that. And so I always knew him as Bobby the Body. Then he goes to MCW, and it's a funny story how it comes to pass. They did a birthday party show at MCW, and they just tried that gimmick. Him and Robbie. It's like, how about if we went out there and we just yell our names, Bobby, Robbie? They went out there, and those kids lost it over them, and immediately the guys at MCW, I think RJ was one of them, was like, we're putting you on the show as Bobby and Robbie. And they changed their music, they changed their appearance, and suddenly they were huge baby faces, Bobby and Robbie. And it's money. It's every time I've seen him work as Bobby, it's been money. And he's been the most favorite. Listen, I did a show in my hometown a couple of years ago, and we had Bobby and Robbie on the show. And I was not the star of that show. Bobby and Robbie were. I go back, and people are like, hey, man, when are you guys doing another show? We'd love to see Bobby and Robbie again. I'm like, oh, thanks a lot, guys. Those guys are money. I love them. They are great talents.
Yeah.
Do you have any strange foods or food combinations you like to eat?
Wow, Mason, you really have great questions, dude. Okay. So one thing about wrestlers, when we start taking care of our bodies, and I made the mistake of not taking care of my body really well until like 2009, just because when I first broke in, I was 14 years old, and it was just like, all right, let's party and fight and have a good time. And 2009, when I was 28 years old, I started having, those aches and pains that comes with getting older. And I realized I need to start taking care of my body. And again, when I went and trained with Shannon and Matt and Jeff and Shane, they're all on TV, and they're like, you need to take care of your body, man. So I started learning how to count macros and to do, protein and cut out lots of fats and carbs and sugars that you don't need and all that kind of stuff. And really, honestly, my palate is pretty plain. I love hot sauces. And so I'll try just about any kind of hot sauce on like chicken wings. Like the hotter, the better. I want to try it, even if it tastes like an ashtray. Like I want to try it. I want to try it just so I can say I tried it. I love I don't know if you guys watch the YouTube show Hot Ones with the wings and the guy that asks the questions and they eat the hot wings. Okay. Phenomenal show. Love the show. And I subscribe to the Hot Ones and whatnot. And so I get those hot sauces. A lot of my friends do as well. And then whenever new hot sauces come out each month, we'll compare and be like, oh, have you tried this one? Oh, have you tried that one? And then we'll have nights where we go to each other's houses and we eat wings and we talk just like this, just like we're talking right now. And we try all the different sauces. Other than that, I don't think I have any crazy food combinations. Is this a thing, Mason? Like when I was a kid, I would eat a sandwich, like let's say turkey and cheese, and I would put potato chips or Doritos on top of the sandwich and then crush it in and like eat it because of the crunch. Like I like the crunch and the nacho cheese. That's a thing?
Yes.
Okay. So I still do that at 39 years old. Is that weird?
As soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, I still do that.
Yeah, hey, we can admit, as grown men, we can admit that, right? We still crunch up chips on our sandwiches.
Absolutely. Now, I made a prediction. I typed something in here for Mason. When you said that, and the reason this question started about is because of the Savage Gentleman. And we know now that a lot of wrestlers have peanut butter because of the high protein and all the things. And they mix it. He has peanut butter with eggs. That's where the question started from. Cool. And as soon as you started talking about this, I typed on my Word document here, he's going to say peanut butter. And then you totally avoided it. I was like, okay, I'm way off the mark then.
I do eat peanut butter with a lot of things. My go-to protein shake is 2 scoops of like chocolate or vanilla protein, a scoop of peanut butter, a banana, some ice, some milk, blend that up, and it always makes a really great protein shake. So I do use a lot of peanut butter. Peanut butter and eggs, though, good Lord. I could not imagine. Peanut butter and eggs is hardcore. That is hardcore.
I'm trying to remember. It got carried away. We got challenged because it's the peanut butter egg challenge. We did that. And then another wrestler challenged us to something else. I think it was peanut butter, eggs, hot sauce, and Old Bay. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, God.
And actually, it wasn't. And actually, yeah, he just said. And actually, it wasn't that bad. Actually,
really,
eggs I was not a big fan of at all. I think the hot sauce might just take some. And you just said you like hot sauce. I think that might add to it. But the Old Bay as well. I was like, that's going to be disgusting. But we did it just for the kicks, and it was.
I've got to try it.
Never had it again since, but it was pretty good.
No, that's not something you would eat every day at breakfast or anything.
No, we never would have thought that. If we hadn't been challenged, there's no way we would have had that on our plate on a regular.
My favorite hot sauce is that sweet hot sauce you got the other day.
I don't remember what that was called. Yeah, I picked it up at Food Lion. It's like a short name. It's like 2 letters and 2 letters. Yeah, that was really good.
Something like Julu or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, I got to look up that one again. I can't remember what it was called.
I would say as a rule, any hot sauce that has like some citrus in it, like a mango habanero or something like that, is fantastic. Yeah. I would recommend any hot sauce where you'll see like mango or orange or anything like that kind of twisted in there, like any kind of citrus twist to a hot sauce. I don't know what, like the citrus takes away some of the heat and brings out more flavor or what, but that works for me. So mango habanero is my favorite.
Now, we often get our 6-year-old to ask a question as well. We'll say, hey, we're interviewing such and such day. Do you have a question for them? And normally it's something pretty random. Now, I'm going to channel my 6-year-old because I know he would want to know this because he's obsessed with this. What's the highest Scoville rating that you've had for a hot sauce? He loves that heat thing. Okay. Like he knows those hottest peppers that you can have.
I want to say, so I've done my share of scorpion peppers, ghost peppers, and they're in the several millions, right? I want to say they're in the 5 or 10 million Scoville. That's probably as hot as I've gone. And I have a pretty high threshold for that kind of stuff. So like just a couple of weeks ago, I'm sitting here with my business partner Les, and we went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and I just called him up and I'm like, what's your hottest sauce that you have? And it's scorpion. It's like scorpion rum or something like that. And we had 5 of them sitting here, and I did a couple without any, and he's going nuts. Like, how are you eating this and not dying? And it's just, you develop a palate for it. And and that's, so yeah, I want to say like 5 or 10 million, something like that in that Scoville rating.
He'll be very impressed with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was my weird food combination is at Taco Bell when I got those cinnamon twists that you can get at Taco Bell. I dipped those in the nacho cheese.
Is that any good?
No.
Yes, it is.
That cannot be good. Cinnamon and cheese?
I thought it was good.
You know what? You might have actually discovered that on the way to N.E.W. possibly. No, was that VCW? Oh, VCW. Never mind. All right, let's keep going.
Who is your favorite teacher in school?
Okay, so I have a couple that, I'm actually still friends with. My history teacher, and I'm not even a big fan of history, but my history teacher, Tim Yunker, growing up, he became one of my very good friends. We, after I graduated, and he was one of the younger teachers, and, he's like in his early 30s while he's teaching me. So when I got out of school, we would travel and go to college football games, and we hit up, many Major League Baseball games, and he's a big sports fan. Not one of my coaches, oddly enough, but he's a big sports fan. And so him and I, went out to many Major League Baseball games and many college football games. I stayed at his parents' house a couple of times to go to West Virginia football games. But yeah, great dude. We're still in touch. He's, so Tim Yunker, my history teacher through high school, still one of my very favorite people in the world.
What advice would you give to a young wrestler?
Okay. So find a school where not only do they have like a reputation about them, but it's with somebody who's been on television, somebody who has made money in the wrestling business, because there are schools everywhere, right? There are wrestling schools, especially in the Carolinas. There are wrestling schools everywhere where the guy will just, take your $60 or $70 a week or a month or whatever and let you bump around in the ring and kind of train yourself, right? That guy has never been on television. He's never made money in the wrestling business. He's just keeping his lights on every month, right? You want to find a school where, and I take pride in the fact that I always try to do this. I read a book early on in my career, and honestly, I can't even remember whose book it was because I've read so many wrestling books. But the guy was like, one of the things I did that benefited me was to go and train with guys who had made money in the business as far as being on television, working with the WWE. They knew what people were looking for. And a lot of times, like when I went to Impact, Elijah Burke, you guys know Elijah Burke?
Yeah.
Remember Elijah Burke? So we're sitting there trying to work out a match, and Elijah happened to be sitting right next to me while we're working out this match. And it's like, what are they looking for? And Elijah was like, hey man, they don't even know what they're looking for till they see it. So you might as well go out there and throw your best stuff at them, and stuff that you do better than Joe Blow does, anybody, throw your best stuff at them. Hopefully they'll see something that jumps out at them and you get picked up, but they don't even know what they're looking for until they see it. And he told me that night, he's like, this isn't like up north, in the WWE, they have a certain way of doing things. If you don't do it their way, it's, they show you the door and that's that, especially back then. This was 10 years ago. This was before NXT and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then at Impact, he's like, we're a lot more loose here, a lot more free. Go out there and do your thing, And luckily, I had some good agents. D'Lo Brown worked with me that night and worked on what I should do and how I should present myself and all that. And of course, Taz was right there by my side the whole time. The guy, again, he's still a mentor. I love the guy to death. But yeah, so find a good school with people who know what they're doing. Take care of your body. If there's another mistake that I made, it was not taking care of my body, going to the gym, working out before I did. I should have, as soon as I committed to wrestling, I should have been in the weight room every other day, making sure that my body was taken care of, that I looked the part, because for several years I didn't look the part. And that's why I never got a second look from a lot of people. The most important thing in wrestling, I think, is knowing who you are as a wrestler. So learning who you are. Who is Dustin Tarr? That was the question I asked myself for years and years and years and years, because if you can't convey to the people who you are out there, they're not going to care. They're not going to care about you. Why would I care about you if you can't even tell me who you are as a person, as a wrestler, as an entertainer? So yeah, and a good trainer will teach you all that. So it starts at ground zero, finding the right school for you. And luckily there's a lot of good ones out there. Like if you decided today, I'm going to wrestling school when I turn 18, you could research several out there right now. I don't know if Lance Storm is still running, but Lance Storm School, the Dudley School in Florida. I want to say Seth Rollins and his best friend have a school in the Midwest. There's a lot of guys who have that freedom to have schools right now. And again, the Nightmare Factory in Georgia, where they're training guys to be on AEW every week right now, and right now QT, runs that school. And that's, it's the Nightmare Factory. So guys come out of there and they're on TV in the Nightmare Family. So, I think Anna J trained there. So Anna J has only been in the business for a couple of years, and she's on TV every week right now with the Dark Order. So, and she just went to the Nightmare Factory, you know. So finding a good school like that with guys who can get you ready for TV and they know what they're doing, that's so important. And putting all those tools in your tool belt, and so that no matter where you go, no matter what they're looking for, you can give them what they're looking for. If they say, you know, I need a guy to do X, Y, and Z, you can do X, Y, and Z for them.
Where can we find you on social media?
Social media, on Twitter, it's real easy. It's Tarr Tweets, TarTweets, Tarr Tweets on Twitter. On Instagram, it's Tarr Pics, TarRPix, I think it is, maybe. Instagram, it's Tarr Pics. And then, Facebook is me, Dustin Tarr.
Thank you for being on. We hope to see you in the squared circle soon.
Oh, man, I hope to be there soon. Thank you guys so much.
It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from them.
Goodbye.
The music was Zigzag by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. http://creativecommons.org/licenses/by/3.0/.
So I've been doing this a long time. I've done a lot of podcasts in my day. I don't believe I've ever done one with a young man whose butt I want to kick more. So, Mason, when you're ready, when you go and get trained, and I hope you go to a good school. I hope you go somewhere where they teach you, number one, how to respect your elders. Number two, how to take a finish in a 3 count, because I'm going to put you down with whatever finish you want me to. And you're going to be looking at the lights and you're going to hear the referee count to 3. So Mason, when you're ready, I hope your dad's there to see it. I hope he can Skype it to everyone you know. And I hope he can put the results on the MGB podcast, because Dustin Tarr is taking Mason down the day you turn 18. How about that? Dad can sign on the line at 16. You can go and get trained. And the day you turn 18, I'm going to make sure you get the butt whooping you have deserved since you were 13. I promise you, Dad, I will make sure that he never disobeys you again, that he keeps his room clean, that your house is spotless, that he makes you dinner every night. Mason, you're going down when you turn